Namaste everyone, and welcome to this video presentation. I'm going to be talking about the hidden forces of nature and how they affect us both personally and how they affect universally in every single being, in every single part of creation. We know from life, from science, that there are many laws of nature. For every action there is an equal and opposite reaction. We know that there are many subtleties to what we can see beyond the senses. Whether it's biology, chemistry, physics, all the branches of science, they're able to tell us there is more going on than meets the eye. If you can imagine now, beyond what science has discovered, there are even more subtler laws of nature. And those subtler laws have a big impact on us. They affect our health, our well-being, our happiness, sadness, our mood swings. They affect the events and the circumstances of our lives in a very great degree. And it can help us understand where fate might come in versus control of our own destiny. All of this and more can really help us understand the rules of life, if you like. I'm a big fan of the metaphysical teacher Florence Scovel Shinn, and she has a wonderful book called The Game of Life. And she talks about these subtle natural laws that affect us. But most people don't know. We're kind of blind to it. So if all this stuff is happening to us, and we don't know what the rules of the game are or how to fix it, how are we ever going to change our lives, transform ourselves? By knowing the rules of the game, then you can play the game successfully. My hope in this video is to share some of these subtle natural laws, help you understand their impact and our place in the universe. By doing so, you'll have a greater clarity of your life. So the first topic we're going to discuss is Om, and chanting the sound of Om. This is something that happens in almost every yoga class, yet I doubt that many truly understand it. It does feel good to chant Om, but there is a very deep significance to it. It is also something extremely sacred and holy for Hindus. Om is written typically A-U-M. But you can also write it O-M. This can be confusing. The reason for this is O-M is a little closer to the pronunciation as you chant it. So if you're writing it down in a passage or in a blog post or whatever you're doing, A-U-M is the correct way to write it. So here we go. Let's talk about Om a little bit. We also want to think about the beginning of creation. One way to kind of expand your mind into Om consciousness, we might say, is to think about the Big Bang. So we know, and scientists have told us, that somehow at the beginning of the universe there was this Big Bang. And the universe was created. Some kind of explosion, or we think about light, or something that caused all of these particles to somehow form into our material universe. It is a complete enigma, because the question comes up, how can something come out of nothing? We live in a causal universe, so everyone wants to know the cause of everything that happened. So we have this kind of huge universal enigma, you might say. But thinking on that term of principle is creation of the universe, we begin to get a little bit closer to Om, based on the teachings of yogis and gurus and the ancient scriptures of India. So when we think about Om and its definition, it's often described as the cosmic creative vibration. Okay? I'll say it again, the cosmic creative vibration. Somehow through a sound wave, through this vibration of the sound of Om, this somehow created the entire universe. So to help us understand, and to help, quite frankly, myself have more clarity, I'm going to read some words for you. This is a book called The Essence of Self-Realization, and it's based on the teachings and quotes of Yogananda that he spoke in his life. And it's really, I love it, this book, because it kind of gets straight to the point rather than talk around it in philosophical terms. So, Yogananda asks the question in a way, how did God, the one reality, manifest this universe of appearances? And then he goes on to explain. that a part of the spirit or pure consciousness moved. The Infinite One vibrated a part of himself to become two, then many, until the cosmic vibration produced stars and galaxies and planets, flowers and trees and human bodies. The Bible tells us the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters. We might compare that motion to the motion of waves on the surface of the ocean. The ocean level never changes, even when the waves rise very high, for every upward movement at one place is compensated by a downward movement at another. The overall water level remains ever the same. Okay? So let me help you with a little analogy or two here. In terms of vibration, my teachers mentioned something that helped me a lot to understand this. If you were to take a tuning fork, the tuning fork is absolutely still and solid, and you struck the tuning fork, it would create a sound vibration. In the same way as if you took a guitar string and moved it, that movement of the guitar string would create a sound vibration. Yes, the guitar string moves a little bit, but it doesn't change shape or form. It is what it is. The tuning fork is completely solid. In this micro way, we can look out to the macro and we can say, from complete absolute stillness of spirit, this movement of a consciousness creates a wave, a sound wave, a vibration. What is vibration? Vibration is movement from a still point in an equal and opposite direction. It's like the pendulum swings one way, it has to swing back the other. Vibration is finite, and it moves back and forth like this. There is a vibration created through sound, this sound of Om. In the same way the guitar string is plucked, it creates a note. So this cosmic creative vibration then, this sound wave, begins to then go out into nothingness, I guess, and it begins to create the material universe, begins to create other beings, from a very high level of deities, right down to angelic beings, into the formation of stars, gases, into planets, into human beings. And the materialization, the vibration densifies throughout all these levels until you get solid flesh or solid matter of the rocks, of the mountains, of everything. Om is the mouth of God, it is said, and that is the beginning point, the root, if you like, of the entire material creation. So in this biblical analysis from Genesis, it talks about the movement on the waters. And many yogis have actually spoken to that as something not just strange or otherworldly, but metaphorical of what is actually happening. The waters, the ocean, is spirit, but it is completely still. In that way, when the vibration is created, it creates a ripple on the surface of the water, and it creates waves. It is said that each one of us, our ego, is like a wave on the ocean of spirit. Now that wave can be a very little wave, which is still very connected to spirit, or that wave takes on more force, and the crest rises and rises and rises. In that way, the ego intensifies and intensifies, and at some point forgets that it is part of the ocean, which of course is what most of us humans experience on a day-to-day basis. Of course, when we have epiphany, religious connection, all of that kind of things, then you try to remind yourself you're part of the ocean once more. You're part of spirit. So this movement of the water creates the ripples, eventually becomes the waves. At some point, the wave, the ego, you might say, then crashes against other waves, and people have conflict. We get into delusion because that wave then thinks that everything that they do, the source of their power is themselves. I did it, as opposed to then Spirit did it, or God as the doer, which is a very important teaching from the Vedas. So in this way, this wave creates this illusion of separateness. Through yoga practices, we calm the wave back down until the wave is so light that you can see and experience the ocean again, and you remember, this is who I truly am. So this wave analogy is very, very important. Interestingly enough, there was an article in Quantum magazine, I don't read that day to day, but someone forwarded me a link to it, and they actually are suggesting now, some scientists have a theory, that our world, our universe, is not just a series of particles or atoms, but that these atoms, when they look at it closely, becomes a wave. And they think that the entire universe could have been formed from a sound wave, which is remarkably similar to what the Om teaching is about. That's something you can research for yourself online. But there is more and more studies being done around these kind of works and beginning to show that what we sense as this material reality all around us is vibrating energy and is a wave. It's remarkable. But for now, let us think about the vibration all around and how it affects us and how we are that vibration. I want to quote one more paragraph from Yogananda here, because this to me is truly remarkable. The cosmic vibration is called Om. It is Amen in the book of Revelation, in the Bible. It is the word in the Gospel of St. John. It is the music of the spheres of the ancient Greeks. It is the Amin of the Muslims, the Anovar of the Zoroastrian, and the Hum of the Tibetan. Out of this great vibration, everything came into being. So what this is saying is, potentially, if you can stretch your mind to think about this and digest it, that every religious tradition has some equivalent of Om. Okay? So potentially, in every great master that came, essentially a religion comes from a spiritual master that reveals truth at that time, in that place, in that culture. So there is an underlying unity within religions to a certain point. But what's really, I think, exciting is potentially that Om is in every religion in some degree or to another. This gives us a major clue as to its source and its importance. So for those of you that grew up in the Christian tradition, which many of us did, at the end of our prayer we say Amen. Okay? What do we do when we say Amen? Why are we saying it? We are essentially spiritualizing the prayer. We are adding energy to it. In the same way, in India, we can add Om at the end of any prayer. Also, it's used in the beginning in the yogic teachings, and Om becomes the primordial mantra, the sacred intelligent vibration. From Om, the other mantras, or these cosmic harmonics, they then form, of which the great sages of the past were able to perceive and then gift them to humanity. It's quite something. So we say Om Namah Shivaya, then we tap into a certain aspect of the cosmic vibration, and it expands out into infinity from there. It's really quite amazing and maybe overwhelming as well. So this Om can be used as a chant at the beginning of your yoga practice and at the end of the practice. In fact, traditionally, it was done at both times, beginning and end. But you can see how this can spiritualize any prayer that you make, any affirmation that you make, or any dedicated yoga practice that you're undertaking. Now, when we talk about the Om vibration, and when you read about it, you're going to discover that Om is and has three parts to it. Essentially, three parts of the vibration. There is a creative vibration. Imagine the Big Bang, a creative force that creates our universe. Okay? Out of spirit, this is the cause. Then you have a sustaining vibration. What holds our universe together? What keeps the planets, the solar systems, the galaxies all revolving in this way? This sustaining aspect of Om obviously is very, very important, right? It's upholding our whole experience for the entire manifest universe. That's huge. And there is a third aspect to Om, which is quite interesting, which is what we call the destroyer or the dissolving force that pulls back into spirit once more. The scientists have already worked out that this planet, this sun, this universe won't last forever. At some point, it will then dissolve back into itself. It will be annihilated in some way. And there is a force that pulls back into spirit. That can seem a little bit frightening at first, but it's also a force that drives our spirituality. Okay? Now, in these three aspects of Om, there is a deity associated with each, and there is a personification of this. So in the creative vibration, we talk about Brahma, and Brahma being the creative force in the deity. Then we have Vishnu. Vishnu then is the sustaining God, if you like, and this sustaining force is personified through Vishnu. And then we have Shiva. Shiva is this, sometimes we say destroying or dissolving force that pulls back into spirit, of pure consciousness. So with these three aspects, it's not just something abstract. The personifications of these three deities are crucial, and they are something that is revered. This is important as we think of Om as something very, very sacred. Om is seen as the spark, the fuse almost, that allows the divine electricity to flow through us. We need that spark. So Om serves a very valuable purpose. It is said by the great writers from India that Om, in a way, is the goal of religion. Okay? The yogis try to perceive the cosmic sound of Om inwardly through meditation. Okay? That's something to grasp. They try to perceive this inward sound of Om through meditation, and they use special techniques to do so. We try to merge our consciousness back with Om because it is the root of spirit. It is the mouth of God, the connecting point from this material existence back to pure spirit. So they try to become one with this, and through Om is how you get back to spirit. So it's very, very important. The other thing that's interesting is, even though Brahma, Vishnu, Shiva were seen as male deities, if you like, of these three aspects, the overall Om was said to be the Divine Mother. And the Mother, as we say, Mother Nature, Om is this generator, if you like, of the entire natural universe. Then the Mother is talked about as Om. So the Mother aspect of Om, we have to go to the Mother to get back to the Father. Father, God, Divine Mother. This is how these two play in together. In the same way in nature, it's very common in children and pets too, I know from my own experience, they tend to go to Mama first, and the Mama's more in the small details and the Father more aloof. This is a generalization, not to be gender inappropriate, but this is something that you kind of see in the natural world. It's a reflection of a divine law also. But you can't think in terms of genders. This is something transcendental, a metaphor to help us understand it. Okay? So Om, Brahma, Vishnu, Shiva. Okay? Lord Brahma, the creative force of the universe. Lord Vishnu, this deity that helps sustain the universe. If things go badly, if there is misunderstanding of these teachings, misbehavior in a very big way with beings, human beings, then it is said Lord Vishnu will incarnate and come down as an avatar. This incarnation of a divine then will come to correct misunderstandings in the teachings. Jesus, Buddha, Krishna, and many others were avatars in this way. They've come to correct understandings and help people move dharmically. Dharma means to move in the natural order of things. Okay? So many misunderstandings happening even after these great teachers, and other avatars have to come, incarnations of a divine, to fix these teachings. That's a whole other subject. But for now, I just want you to know that Lord Vishnu is the sustaining deity. Now, Lord Shiva is an interesting one. Lord Shiva is regarded as the Lord of all yogis, the founder of all yoga, but is a destructive force. It can be very confusing. Lord Shiva is the deep meditator, and the mountain in the Himalayas, Mount Kailash, is said to be his abode. So what does this mean? Lord Shiva is this personification of a consciousness that goes back into spirit, that destroys delusion, destroys separateness and unhappiness. So Lord Shiva is highly regarded in yoga practices. A couple other little interesting factors with Om is in these three aspects of Om, they say that there's a beginning, a middle, and an end. That's the other way to look at Om. Everything in nature has that. We're born, we live, we die. From flowers to trees to ourselves, this is how it is. So in that natural phenomena, you can witness these three aspects of Om happening. You can begin to hear Om more and more through the sounds in nature. Every sound is a root from Om. As you begin to see and experience that, you begin to realize this subtle vibration everywhere in nature. Interestingly enough, it is said that Om also manifests as light. Okay? In the same way as a projector, we mentioned in a different video presentation, the projector in the movies that spins, that motor creates the light, and the light shines. So Om also manifests as light. Interestingly enough, going back to Genesis, let there be light. Yes, the yogis agree. The waves moving on the surface of the ocean is again similar to the metaphorical teaching that's in there, as opposed to a literal one. So I think these are really fascinating things to understand because it gives reconciliation to divergent viewpoints. So this is the Om, beginning, the middle, and the end, chanted 3 times. One other tidbit I'll give you is, there's a beautiful book called Proof of Heaven by Dr. Eben Alexander that talks about near-death experience. He states that when he left the body, he was able to hear the sound of Om. And when you hear it at that point, you want to get closer to it because it's the most comforting, beautiful sound you've ever heard. Not like music where you get tired of it. This is something that draws your soul. And in that moment, you realize that the more spiritual practice you do, the closer you can get to Om. So this is something to think about for those that are striving for spiritual progress. Chant the sound of Om deeply and begin to hear that as much as you can. Connect to that vibration more and more. And in that way, it'll be more natural to you for this life and the next. The important part of Om is how to chant it. Okay? So when you chant the Om, we want the Om sound to be long enough, okay, so that you can really go deep into the vibration. Now the AUM, as it's written, gives us a kind of indication of how to chant it. So there's 3 sounds that kind of merge together as one. There's an A sound, kind of A like this, a U sound in the middle, like in moon, as in moon, and then a sound where the lips come together. The lips have to open in the beginning to really get that sound. Once you chant, you want the sound at the end to be about 1/3 or so of the chant. Very important at the end is to sit in silence, even just for a few seconds, to feel a vibration internally. Okay? So let's give it a shot. Perhaps you can join in with me. Perhaps close your eyes. It's good to breathe first to release your lungs. So inhale and exhale. Inhale to chant. So it's very peaceful. I feel like meditating after that. Of the 3 I chanted, you may notice in the first one, there was a little bit more distinction between the A, U, intentionally. And the third one, I morphed them together a little bit more, which is how I understand the correct way to do it. I must tell you that different teachers have done this in different ways. Some people do a long A, a long U, a long and yet I've been told, put them all together. I don't know, but you can think about this. This is quite common in these teachings that different teachers, even different gurus, are saying different things. This is life in yoga, 5,000-year-old tradition that is vast. This happens from time to time. Most importantly, feel the vibration for yourself, experience it, and see the results. So now we're going to talk about cosmic illusion and duality and something called Maya, M-A-Y-A. So in this material universe there is a vibration. This vibration densifies more and more and more until individual beings are created. The waves on the surface of the ocean are distinct and the identity is formed. Now for these waves that become stronger and stronger as we become physical human beings, we forget our source. We forget who we really are, what we really are. We get stuck on this body, its needs and its demands, its senses and its desires, our attachments and our belief systems. So we fall into what's called illusion, or sometimes they call it delusion, where both of which are the cause of our suffering in this world. So Stephen, the individual, then thinks they're separate from everything. That means I've got to rely on myself, my intellect, my energy, it's all about me. The ego then likes to put itself first and its beliefs first. It doesn't like to know that it's wrong or be told that something is misunderstood. So we get defensive. This increases the intensity of the wave. So in this way, this cosmic illusion, it creates a veil. Okay, this is the Maya. The Maya is this veil that forms over our intimate knowledge of our soul and of God. So in doing so, it creates, in some ways, chaos within the being and within the natural world. So in this way, with Maya, it's done not to punish us or to hurt us in any way. This is done deliberately so that we can have an experience, so we can grow, learn lessons, and we can purify ourselves more and more, and eventually find our way back to Source. Okay, so out of this cosmic illusion of Maya, then yoga is the way in which we reunite. Yoga means union or yoking. We re-yoke back into spirit. We reconnect back to the light and to the Source. That's what it's doing. So I'd like to quote for you a couple passages from the Bhagavad Gita. So this little book, which we're showing you the cover of now, is really beautiful in terms of the translation, a little easier to understand. It's a very small scripture, but it is packed full of wisdom. And in doing so can take you a long time to understand. I've read it many times and I'm still learning each and every time I open it up. In chapter 7, there's a couple quotes about Maya. Hidden by my veil of Maya. Now Maya is meant to be Krishna speaking, or let's just say the divine. I am invisible to mankind. Humanity therefore, bewildered by appearances, sees not that I am in essence ever unborn and ever deathless. Okay? So hidden by the veil, invisible to mankind. We search for the light in our lives, we search for enlightenment, but when we close our eyes, it is dark because the veil has shrouded our inner gaze. Birth in a body subjects all beings to the power of delusion with its dualities, which produce attraction and repulsion, such as the storm of Maya on the surface of my ocean of consciousness. So the duality, vibration has a back and forth, equal and opposites. All of vibration and all of the universe has a positive duality and a negative duality. Okay? Positive being spirit, negative being in a physical body. Negative doesn't necessarily mean bad, it just means away from spirit. The duality also is the subject-object split. Stephen is separate from the rest of the perceived universe and from God. It is indeed difficult to waken from my cosmic hypnosis. Only they who take shelter in God can find freedom from the wonderful power of illusion. Okay? This is something very elaborate and something so real that to wake from it takes incredible willpower, incredible growth. It takes a guru, it takes a guide to waken from the cosmic illusion. Now the waken metaphor is used a lot. Often it is said that God dreamed the universe into existence. When you have a dream, you essentially project something that's happening. it seems very real. You're in a scenario, the senses are engaged, there's beautiful colors. All of a sudden you feel fear, you might feel happiness. Often it's fear, unfortunately, that comes into the dreams because of our state of consciousness. But this can feel very, very real. The dream is created somehow. When you wake from the dream, then you wake up and you thought, oh, it was only a dream. And you kind of maybe laugh to yourself, or in some cases you wake up and say, thank goodness it was only a dream. But somehow we created a reality. Now, if you can use that to comprehend for yourself, in this same way, the universe is dreamed into existence. This is another way to look at how Spirit creates the entire universe. It dreamt it, or God dreamt the universe into being. Now, it is said that when we pass away and move into the next life, it is like waking up from a dream. And you realize that this life, this physical life, and all the things that you love to do was only a dream. It wasn't the reality with a capital R. So when they have that experience, then you realize much greater joy and happiness than what is in this world, at least based on day-to-day existence of the average person. So the dream nature of the universe is key for understanding Maya. But it's so elaborate, it's so intense that we get caught up in it. Going back to the projector analogy, they also say that Maya is like a drama that's created. The duality creates positive experiences and negative experiences, heroes and villains. Okay? Why is there evil? Why are there villains in this world? It is they say, to make you love the hero more. Also for the hero, that's us, to try to purify ourselves, overcome our weaknesses, and find great courage to transcend our own selves. But this positive, negative, dark, light analogy is how the universe is made up. And we are in the thick of it. The other analogy I can give you is, it's almost like you're watching a sporting event. Let's say you're playing an event, a football game of American football, and there are two teams playing. Okay? You're cheering for one side, or you're participating in one side, and then there's the other team. Now in the duality of things, when your team scores a point, you jump up and down for joy and you're so happy and elated in that moment. Then the other team scores a point and then you're dejected and some people start crying and all kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, it's only a game. Life is like this, where it's a game. Yes, it's intense. Yes, you're in it. And you got to play it. You can't just sit at the bench on the side. One team is going to play and keep scoring points. We are thrown into this incarnation to learn, and you're going to play the game. Now it's true, some people become depressed, some people take too much drugs to try to escape these kind of things. It is true, but you feel great sadness and depression through these things ultimately. What we're saying is, get in the game and play the game and score the points in this way. But remember, ultimately, it's only a game. And in doing so, you'll find relief from suffering. And the suffering comes through ignorance, also then fear of death. All of these huge psychological issues for human beings are coming about, they're arising because of Maya, because we feel separate in this way. So with Maya, what we're trying to do is wake up from the dream. We're trying to realize in ourselves where our home is, who we truly are, and to realize what's happening in the world. Many people say, how could God have created wars and famine and everything else? However, when you understand these deeper teachings, in a way you might say, we created it. And the negativity and evil that comes in some ways is so we can stand up against it, so that we can actually find solutions and say that we are connected at one with these beings. So as I believe Dr. Martin Luther King stated, how can I find true health if others are suffering? How can I be happy in myself while those have no food to eat or are in war? Because we are one with them. That is this human instinct. So in doing so then, we can find true happiness as we serve others. If we help someone across the street who's struggling, we feel good, we feel uplifted in that moment. Our energy rises, we feel expansive. And it's because we are ultimately all one with them. Through our meditation, then, we can break through the Maya and the darkness, perceive the Om and the light. That is what yoga is trying to do. It might sound impossible, but I can tell you from experience that it is possible. And I can tell you that many people dedicate their lives to trying to perceive these things. It's not easy, it takes great courage, but as you do it, great joy comes as well, because you're going home. The Divine Mother, Father, whatever you want to call God, is bringing you home. And it feels good. So be in this world, but not of the world, as they say. Realize this drama that's playing out, and you and I have a part to play in this drama. And we can change things. We can alter the script as we go along. And in doing so, we'll grow tremendously. This is Dharma. Individual Dharma, playing our part in the world. Our spiritual Dharma. Also then, searching for God. There's family Dharma as well. Parenting and then being in relationships. There is Dharma of the country, of the world. And so we've got to tune into this and say, what is my part to play? And that way then be a positive role within this Maya. And then remember, it's just a dream at the end of the day. But a very, very real one, a very, very entertaining one, and obviously a very painful one at many times. But in doing so, as you learn it individually, you can learn then to be even-minded to the best of your abilities. Within the manifestation of Maya, it is said from the soul, from the point of pure essence of self, that there is a degree of manifestation within different parts of the person. So this creates what's called a kosha, or a sheath, around the soul, so to speak. So there are different koshas that gradually densify. In the same way we have a subtle body and a physical body, right? So there are different degrees within the subtle body for different koshas or sheaths. Sometimes they translate it as sac. And let me explain. First of all, we have our physical sheath, this kosha. And so this physical body we all know about, we've talked about it, you all know about physical bodies. Then you have a body of prana, or energy, or life force. This sustains the physical kosha. This pranic kosha is in every single cell, so to speak. It's subtle really in a different dimension, but it supports on a cellular basis, almost like a little Russian doll, one inside the other. You then have a kosha of the mind that perceives through the senses. Essentially, it's almost like the data kosha, you might say, and that's pulling in all of the sensory information, everything from the smartphone, everything else that piles into this kosha, and it stays there. Then you have a kosha of intellect and wisdom. So this kosha then is much closer to our true self, and it's where we can perceive intuitively and have inner wisdom and epiphany. Then, which I think is very exciting, you have a kosha, essentially a subtle body, that is made of bliss and joy. That's deep within this. It is the closest to the self. So imagine you have a bliss body inside of you. When we search for happiness, everyone's looking outside themselves for happiness, not realizing there's a body of bliss inside that we can connect with through yogic practices and meditation. So think of this different degrees of manifestation through to the solid. Every kosha can and needs to be fed. Every kosha can be healed through different practices. I exercise my body. It's the physical kosha. We call ana maya kosha. So it's like a degree of maya. Then we have prana maya kosha, the energy body. Through energy techniques, this is where acupuncture comes in, tai chi, yoga practices can work on this subtle body. Then you have mano maya kosha. Manas or mantra, we go straight into this kosha. We can also heal the senses, go forest bathing, all of these things that we can do. Then you have the wisdom kosha, vijnana maya kosha. That's a hard one to say. Vijnana maya kosha is then not just the intellect and knowledge and information, reading sacred text, meditating and tapping into intuition. Then we have ananda maya kosha, feeling the bliss body, devotion to God, creating this deep mood of devotion, and these feelings is where this comes in. Deep meditation, you can tap into ananda maya kosha. This is something that you can work with. I've only touched upon it in this video, Those that are interested, go and research the koshas some more. There's lots of teachings on it. I also found recently at yogainternational.com, they have a kosha article. If you search it online, you can find it and learn simple techniques and a greater understanding of the koshas. But think of this as Maya, as the individual manifestation of Maya, right through into our physical sheath. Because the cosmic illusion or Maya is so powerful and potentially so difficult, I want to relate a story to it that can help you understand the gravity of a situation, and how for people who don't have any spiritual connection, who don't have any understanding of these teachings, how difficult it can be to break free of Maya when you're in it. So, going back to ancient Indian times, there was a great sage called Narada. And Narada prayed deeply. And his prayer was to understand the nature of Maya. Because he was a sage, he thought it was foolish for the average person, the average human being, to be so caught up in Maya. Because to him, God was everywhere, and he saw God in everything, and he knew the true nature of himself. But he wanted to understand it from their perspective. So he prayed to Lord Vishnu. Lord Vishnu, the sustainer of the cosmos, came down and appeared before Narada. He told him his prayer and his request. Lord Vishnu, agreeing to it, said to Narada, "Let's go for a walk." They went for a walk, and then Vishnu said to him, "I'm very thirsty. Could you go and get me some water?" Narada, of course, wanted to obey Lord Vishnu. This great God said, of course. So he walks off. He finds a little village, and he goes to look for water. He knocks on the door of a house, and hoping to find water, instead he finds a very beautiful woman, and he falls in love. So deeply in love, he forgets everything. He forgets Lord Vishnu. He forgets the request for water. Then he stays with this beautiful woman. They become married. From there they have children. He has 3 beautiful children. About 12 years pass. He has the 2 older children and a young infant. Then one day a great storm came, and a flash flood came through their village. The flood came through, pouring through, sweeping away the family. As they clung to each other in this great water, immersed, they held on for dear life. Narada had one of the children on each arm, holding on to him, and the infant on his back. As they clung to the rocks with the water sweeping through, he lost one child and another into the water. Distraught, he held on to the baby for dear life. Then his wife got swept away, and the baby and himself cast into the water. He found himself on a rock. He had lost everything that he'd worked for, everything that he held dear over the last 12 years. And he sobbed and sobbed and sobbed. Then he began to hear a voice. The voice called his name, a familiar voice, and again it called his name. And he looked up, and Lord Vishnu was standing there. And Lord Vishnu said to him, "Where have you been? I asked you to get water 30 minutes ago, and you never came back." Narada got up and then realized he had been taught this lesson. In the intensity of life experience, he'd forgotten everything, and his attachment to it was so great that the loss of it was devastating. This is Maya. It is not something to be toyed with or spoken lightly with. This is something very, very real. And it is done so that we can be in the drama of creation, so that we can lose ourselves to find ourselves, so that we can have the courage to overcome. This is not easy stuff, but if you can understand it and see it in motion, you too can learn to be free of some of this pain, to live your life to the fullest and know that there is lots more to come. So our next area to focus on is called the gunas. And the gunas is a very practical way to look at nature, manifestation, and how it affects us individually and everything around us in the natural world. I'm going to read a quote here from Bhagavad Gita. The Vedas teach that the universe is a mixture of three basic qualities, or gunas. Your duty, as the yogi, is to free yourself from all three, as well as the dualities of nature. The way to this achievement is to remain ever calm in the self. Okay, so three basic qualities of nature. Now, when this Om vibration creates Maya, creates this natural universe around us, there is a force that pulls away from spirit. It is a force of inertia that becomes heavier and heavier as things manifest from spirit through nebulous gases, right through to molten lava, to the dense matter, to rocks that we see and can experience now. There is a level of densification, if you like. And in that is this force of nature that draws away from spirit. It is a heavy force, which we call tamo guna. So tamo guna, or tamas as it's called, is this force of dullness. It takes us away from spirit. Tamo guna is a darkening or heavy quality within our consciousness. So if you remember in Subtle Anatomy, there's a video on the Keys to Subtle Anatomy you can watch if you haven't seen it. And in this video we talk about the negative pole, the root chakra of our being, and how the spirit and soul comes in through the spinal chakras down and then kind of locks into our being. This is the tamasic quality of nature. The tamasic quality of nature is something that makes us feel low, sad, or depressed, but also is very helpful because it allows us to sleep and to rest when we need it. It is part of a natural world. Okay? So this is this manifestation principle of tamas. We might say that something, an object or a person, is tamasic in that the force is really dominant in them at this point in time. Next we have an activating force. So within all of nature there is a force of creativity. There is a force of activation, of doing and getting things done. This is called Rajo Guna. And Rajo Guna, or Rajas, can make a person rajasic. So Rajo Guna can be activating. It can also be restlessness, how it manifests in people, and too passionate in a way that people are very emotional or all over the place. Now with Rajo Guna, we're talking about activation of energy. And Rajo Guna is kind of like the middle guna, you might say, in that it can go either direction, towards spirit or towards matter, towards heaven, towards hell, towards positive, towards negative, activating energy. I'll try and give you an example to this. So if someone was kind of depressed and they became, how do you say, couch potato, they're kind of lying on the sofa, they don't want to do anything, watching TV, this can be a tamasic feeling. At some point you need activity to get up and do something. In that way, once we get up, we move, the mind begins to move faster again, we want to do something with the energy that we've created. However, if we're still in a negative place, we can go out and do something that might not be the best. Perhaps we then watch a violent movie, or we get angry at somebody, or we chew someone out, or there's all kind of ways that we can be negative. This will make you tamasic again. We try to activate again, but hopefully we'll be a bit more positive in what we're doing. Rajasic is very egotistical in this way, in that it's all about me. It's all about my achievements, my energy, I'm doing it. I'm in charge. I make the decisions here, that kind of thing. So this is the Rajasic energy. Then the third guna is called Sattva, or we say Sattvic, meaning we have a Sattvic person, Sattvic experience. This is something that is clear, calm, happy, kind, but still has a trace of ego, but we're at least moving back spiritually. To give you another example, let's say you're driving your car and then you decide to cut someone off. You get angry at them, you shout at them in the car. This would be kind of Rajasic behavior that was slightly tamasic, in that it was negative. You park your car, you get up, you feel a little guilty. Something in you says, maybe I shouldn't have done that. Then you see, let's say, an old person trying to cross the street or having trouble, and then you think, I got to make right this wrong. So you go and help this person. By doing so, then you use the Rajasic energy, activating energy, and you use it in a way that's more sattvic to help another. In that way, you feel good about it. Like, ah, yes, that was the right thing to do. I learned my lesson. Okay? However, it's still about me. I feel good because I did that. You tell the story to your partner, and you speak about this in terms of ego or individualistic sense. So it's a sattvic action, slight combination of sattvic and rajasic, but we're moving in the right direction in terms of greater expansion of consciousness. So see rajasic as kind of like the middle way, but it can very much go in either direction. Now these are three kind of polarities, but everything in nature is a blend of this. Every action is to one degree or another. You can't see them as three separate camps. It's kind of like three cords woven together into a thread. So there's kind of like that twist of the thread that comes through it. This is how everything in the universe is. In our own being then, the gunas affect us feeling heavy or low or tamasic or negative, versus then rajasic, activating, getting stuff done, versus sattvic then more yogic in that we are more calm and balanced and happy. We can be sattvic and go about our daily activities as well. That's actually what you really, really want. Then you meditate and you try to transcend the last of the gunas, is what the yogi teachings are trying to tell us. Now the gunas are essential for the universe to manifest itself. These forces of nature are hidden and they are very powerful. So the gunas essentially can toss us around all over the place because everything in nature has a gunic quality and affects us whether we realize it or not. So what you're doing, from the music you listen to the movies, to the food, to the people you talk to, everything has a gunic quality. And what you consume through the senses goes into the subtle body and then changes the gunic state in the person. Okay? This is really, really important to understand for two reasons. One, if you can begin to identify the gunic shift, you can apply yogic teachings correctly to offset the gunic force inside of you. And two, you realize that for the average person who's not aware of these hidden forces, that the gunas affect you, and we often are harsh to judge people. So in the Gita it actually states somewhere, it says, the wise do not judge because of the gunas, because even the gunas affect the wise. They affect everyone. And in doing so, in a way it's beyond our control. Yes, we have willpower, yes, we have self-control to an extent, but if you really think about all of the habits you have, all of the reactions, the triggers, everything that the cravings for food, so much happens in the human mind and body that's actually beyond our control. We're just reapplying the old habits that we have normalized in ourselves. Okay? So in this way, don't judge people too harshly, but realize the gunas are affecting them. In a way, it's really hard to fight against. So for yoga teachers watching this, the gunas is very, very important to understand, because you can begin to apply yoga classes to the gunic state of people and observe them quite easily of their gunic state. Okay? I'll give you some examples of how this might apply. First of all, as something tamasic impacts a person, then they'll tend to be feeling sluggish. They'll tend to feel heavy and tired. Okay? They'll tend to not want to go too deep into postures, or they'll want a practice that's more lying down on their back. I just want to lie in Shavasana today, as many people have told me over the years. This would be a good sign of more tamasic energy. Okay? We can work with that. They may then complain, they may even draw their gaze down, they may exhale, and especially slouch in the posture. There's just that difficulty to lift against the heaviness. So in doing so, you can see someone who's tamasic and say, okay, I can help you. And they don't really have to tell you anything. You can see it in their posture, in their face. Very tamasic people will have a kind of a heaviness in their being, even darkness around the eyes. All of these things can apply, and we can work with it just on basic observation. Okay? So a tamasic person wants to kind of lie down, do restorative, and that kind of thing, which is good at certain times, but sometimes you need to get on your feet and do stuff. More commonly in our society is the rajasic person. And let's say, as a side note, we live in a highly rajasic society. It is constant move, 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 activity, activity, and it's all about me, it's all about getting ahead. Competitiveness is very Rajasic, okay? And Rajasic tamas in this way. So the Rajasic person comes, they're fidgety, they're restless, they want to get moving, okay? They need to burn off some of this rajas, okay? So in this way you can see that person. The highly Rajasic person is going to be the one that strains and strains to touch their toes even though their body's hurting. They're going to overdo the postures, they're going to overreach, they do it too extremely. And actually, in some ways, their yoga that they practice can be, dare I say, bad yoga for them because they are continuing, feeding their rajas. So a Rajasic person wants a Rajasic class, which many of the pretty strong fitness classes are Rajasic. In this way then, they're actually feeding and enabling their rajas. Okay, so you see the problem here. Highly Rajasic person. Then you get the person that's cool, calm and collected, who has good posture, who's happy, who's pretty balanced, like a pretty reasonably sattvic person. Why you come to yoga class? No, I'm just kidding. You can see in that way that they're sattvic. When you're sattvic and the body is fine, then you're ready to go into meditation. So this brings me on to yoga techniques to help. Generally speaking, for someone who is tamasic, pranayama is best. Also, for highly tamasic people, getting on your feet and moving and being in postures, especially holding poses, is very good to break a tamas. So for a tamasic person, then some alternate nostril breathing would be good to start the practice, then moving into Kapalabhati, things like this, and then going into some movements, slow movements in particular, would be good for them. Okay? Lots of pranayama again to clear the tamas, like clearing a cloud. For the Rajasic person, then the vinyasa is really, really important for them. But it needs to be intelligent vinyasa. If the music's too loud, a little crazy, the Rajasic energy will keep coming and keep coming through them. You want to start them off at a point through vinyasa, bring them into stillness, later in the class holding the poses, then into that shavasana. At some point the Rajasic energy will dissipate, and if you're not careful, a line will be crossed and you'll move into tamasic again, i.e. tired and exhausted. I've seen some yoga classes, it's very curious, where you go, 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 and then you kind of lie there at the end, totally exhausted, and then you get up and leave. This is not good yoga from a gunic point of view. Moving just enough to burn the rajas, calm it down, be in stillness, then you sit and do your pranayama to make sure that the tamasic force of nature does not overcome the person. Then hopefully rajas and tamas are balanced, and then you're sattvic, and then it's easier then to close your eyes and meditate. If you sit down and just meditate and you're rajasic, just guess what? Hamster on the wheel, monkey mind, going, going, going. If you're tamasic, you'll nod off in the middle of the meditation. Okay? We need to balance the gunas if we're to have a balanced yoga practice. And this essentially is nature and our nature inside of us. So I encourage yoga teachers, go read about the gunas, go see about examples and techniques for that. I also want to recommend one of my teacher's books, Srivatsa Ramaswamy, Yoga Beneath the Surface. And in that he has a question and answer book, and it's very well done in terms of answering specific questions from a teacher to student point of view. So with the gunas, remember, everything you experience in your life has a gunic quality to one degree or another. Okay? So choose wisely. Let's say you're going to the movies. You're going to Alamo Drafthouse, right? So you first of all choose a movie. Do you choose a highly rajasic movie? Okay, if you do, no big deal, but you will come out more rajasic at the end of it. Perhaps an action movie, even though it's a good principle in the end, it's like non-stop car chases, all of these things, this will add rajas into it. Perhaps you go to a tamasic movie, maybe one of those horror films or something, a very negative, dark film. You'll feel it. You'll feel heavy. You'll feel even unclean sometimes with some of these gangster films and all this stuff. Or perhaps you go to see a sattvic movie, you know, something very uplifting, very pure, no violence, you know, just a real good, wholesome story. There are movies out there, if you search for them, that are like that, okay? Then you go to the movies, you buy your tickets, and then you decide who you're going to go to the movie with, okay? The people that you hang out with will have a gunic quality. The group will be influenced by perhaps a dominant person who has a higher level of magnetism in one way or another. You've probably had dinner with friends where people are complaining all the time and it's all negative, negative, negative. This will affect you and you'll go home feeling more tamasic. That's life, right? Then you might have friends that are wholesome, that are idealists, that want to change the world, all these things. These people will affect us. They'll affect our thoughts, our opinions, and everything. But most importantly, that force of nature will be changed. Okay? Now, a big one is diet. What you decide to eat has a gunic effect upon you. Okay? Certain foods are tamasic, right? Maybe heavy breads or pizzas or beer and these kind of things. Then there's rajasic food that can be highly activating, spicy in particular is one. Then you have sattvic food that's more balancing, that keeps the body at the right temperature, all of these things. I want to touch upon diet because it is something I'm asked a lot about, and what do yogis say for diet? So with food and intake of food, the gunas play a big part. And you can create what's called a sattvic diet. Okay? Now this differs somewhat from vegetarianism and veganism, but it's very close to it. Now, I hope it doesn't offend anyone, but eating meat would be seen as tamasic, okay? And potentially rajasic, depending on the type of the meat. There are arguments different ways in different directions. But generally, the sattvic way and the yogic diet is a vegetarian diet, okay? Now, there are vegetarians, and I can hold my hand up guilty to this one, who might eat a lot of cheese and a lot of bread. This would also have a tamasic quality to it. Even eggs in this way, okay? So this is a very strict diet. So lots of dairy in this way would be seen as more tamasic, rajasic. Now, to be purely sattvic, it differs from veganism in a couple of subtle ways. And it essentially involves a little bit of butter and a little bit of milk or yogurt, okay? First things first, when we're talking about these texts that speak about sattvic diet, we're not talking about butter or milk coming from a factory farm or anything like this. In fact, many people know that cows are sacred in India and you're not allowed to harm them in any way. You never would take milk artificially in the way that dairy is done. This is not what we're talking about. We're talking about a little bit of excess milk from the cow, and there are teachings that say that the cow's dharma is to provide the milk in this way, okay? Again, you can see how these things can be manipulated. But a little bit of the butter, and the butter is used in the diet, especially ghee, which is the clarified butter, okay? Again, you cook with the ghee, they use the ghee in sacred rituals, and to light the flame of the candle, this kind of thing. And then the milk, Krishnamacharya, who's a great yogi, used to say, have like an ounce of milk in the morning once a day that came from the cow. You know, this is what they talk about. It's a tiny portion of it. Part of the culture in areas of India would use yogurt also. There's lots of healing qualities to yogurt. Again, small quantities, okay? I've never heard of anyone really eating honey. I don't know, maybe that was or so, but I've never heard about it. And again, to me, to the best of my knowledge, cheese was never really factored in this way. I don't know 100% on this, okay? And again, eggs would be seen as tamasic and not taken in this way. Other than that, it's pretty strict plant-based diet, okay? So, this would be the sattvic diet, ideally. Now, for those of you that are wondering about what's the difference in the ghee and a little bit of milk, would be that without it, then a little bit of rajasic energy would come in. It would be activating and create more passion in this way. And having the ghee and the butter does something that makes you a little bit more calm and collected. Okay? So I want you to really think about that and observe that, and those that are on a vegan diet, stay vegan for goodness sake, but you might also want to think about if you feel rajasic qualities coming in, there's a lot of passion there, then perhaps look at yogic techniques to balance it and think about calming that down through other influences like music, for example. So music, movies, anything you take in directly through the senses, like this, is pure vibration. The quality of the music changes. We know opera music versus spiritual chants versus heavy metal, all of these things affects the gunas. You begin to work out these very negative lyrics that come out, are really damaging to the gunas in a way, and will make you more tamasic and rajasic, reactive and angry in this way. Now, anger serves to a certain point of view versus being very depressed. So it's all about states of consciousness. There are complexities to it. I just want you to know that music, movies, imagery, art, everything has a gunic quality. Art doesn't necessarily have to be always uplifting. It can be kind of depressing sometimes. So you want to think about all this stuff and adjust accordingly. The last thing I'm going to say about gunas is something very, very profound. And it is said in the Bhagavad Gita that at the point of death, your gunic state determines the quality of your next incarnation. And it even determines how far you rise or how long you spend in the astral heavenly realms. How close you get to the higher beings of wisdom. Okay, so think about that for a moment. If you've lived your life in a tamasic way, negative, complaining, bitter, resentful, this will affect where you go next in your next incarnation. Reincarnation is often seen as a sort of lottery, but no, it's very much based on your actions and what you do. So think about that, the next lifetime being thrown into a family that's very tamasic. Like magnetism, you're drawn to them. Also drawing into a family that may be successful, competitive, very rajasic. And then drawing into a family that's more sattvic, that's easier to grow spiritually. This is done based on your past actions, based on your choices. This is done so that you can learn and grow from it, not to punish you. But it's essentially a hidden law of nature that pulls you from one place to the next. So, choose well in your life. Live according to the gunas. For the yoga teachers, help people become more sattvic. In doing so, you'll help their life, their happiness, and you'll even help their next incarnation. So go to work. The final topic in this video is a big one, and I'm just going to introduce it, and that is karma. So karma is a word that's used all the time now in the modern vernacular. And karma is often talked about and understood by, I guess, lay people in that it is some sort of punishment. It's my karma. This happened to me and it's my karma and there's nothing you can do about it. End of story. So karma is used a lot in a way that I feel is very kind of punishing. I grew up in Scotland and there I find people say karma, especially almost in a Presbyterian kind of a way. Karma's translation, its meaning is action. Okay? So karma is the action undertaken. Not necessarily the cause and effect, although it plays out in this way. So action of karma can mean anything that we have done physically, spoken, or thought. One thing that really helped me grasp karma was to begin to recognize that thoughts are things. Okay? There's an underlying energy to every thought that's undertaken. They have weight, so to speak. I watched a documentary several months ago and I was fascinated to find, I believe they were German scientists, and they were staring into this box and they were measuring thoughts and they were able to weigh thoughts. There's something tangible in the thought. So every thought, every word, every action goes somewhere, energetically speaking. There is a hidden force that goes out. Now, in this universe, everything is vibration and duality. The pendulum swings. What goes one way must come back the other. The universe balances itself back out to zero once more. This is another way to look at duality. So the actions that you undertake dualistically based on the senses, perhaps you go out drinking, whatever, then that has to be balanced with the hangover. Okay? This is one way to look at it. The energy that's transmitted must go somewhere and come back to itself in that same quality that's put out. Think of a circle. The circle must complete itself. This, in a way, is the action, and how the action has a cause and effect. Okay? Everything in the universe is built dualistically, so this karma is within everything. The karma that I'm here giving this talk, to you watching it on the video. This is our karma. Okay? Every single action that comes about. Karma is finite in that our actions don't last for all eternity. There is obviously a beginning to action and an end to some. Okay? Now this action, think of this, all of the actions you've ever done in this lifetime. That essentially builds like a bank account, all those deposits, they build and build and build to create a bundle of karma. Okay? That karma then needs to go somewhere. So in this way, once you get to the end of life, you have a bundle of karma, let's say your bank deposit of karma. Good, bad, indifferent, more spiritual, more negative, more personal, more angry. It is intricately elaborate, okay? We cannot understand. There's even a quote I heard once, even the gods don't understand karma. It's so complicated. But the energy of certain types of things goes somewhere. It might not manifest like for like, but angry karma will come back in angry situations, for example. Loving karma will come back in loving situations, okay? Now, when you finish your life, obviously, we haven't resolved all that energy. It's still out there somewhere in the universe, right? That karma is in the quantum field and it's sitting there. It then has to come back and complete itself eventually. So what happens? We need to take another lifetime to pay back the karma, to realize our lessons, and to purify ourselves so that everything can come back to center once more. There is no way, if you can accept karma on some level, there is no way you can do it in one lifetime. Unless you perfect yourself, which can be done by a master, but the odds are astronomical. Okay? In the same way, previous lifetimes that we don't remember, there is karma from those lifetimes. All of that bundle creates a huge, big deposit of all those karmas. Now, it seems a bit harsh for all of that to come back in one lifetime. So, somehow through this individual incarnation, you take a piece of it and you manifest it in this life. Usually through past tendencies and 2 or 3 lessons, maybe even one major lesson. If you look at people in your life and you observe them, there's usually 1 or 2 big things that's been a thread through their whole life. Angry, complaining, annoying, kindness, whatever it may be, but usually it's a lesson. Then this is their karma playing out from past lives. And they're trying to learn a lesson to not be like that anymore and to transcend it. It's done in a way to force us to grow. Otherwise we would just sit and think, no big deal, I was mean to this person, end of story. But karma is very powerful, and if it ever comes to light that this stuff is real, all of a sudden it's like, oh, I'm responsible for all my actions. In the same way your gunic state at time of death tells you which family you're going into, karmic state is a more intricate way to look at this, whereby then you go to a family that helps you learn these lessons. The mother, father will play a specific role in your individual karma. They work together so that you all can grow. It's really quite fascinating and very elaborate. I want to read from you a quote from Dr. David Frawley. He has Vedanet.com and dozens of books. He is one of the top authorities of Vedic teachings in America. Karma, meaning action, is a term in yoga spirituality for explaining the soul's evolution from life to life. Karma is generally portrayed as the effect of our individual actions, extending from past lives to present and future lives. It is often regarded as a force of determination, like fate or destiny. We speak of a person's karma catching up with them. What goes around, comes around. Or, as you sow, so shall you reap, indicating the inescapable result of what we have done. Yet, if we look deeper, we see that karma reflects the fact that we create our own reality. We fashion ourselves and our environment according to all that we do in life. Karma, therefore, means we are universal creators, not simply the helpless products of external forces. Karma is the underlying process of a self-creating universe. It indicates the universe creates itself according to inner intentionality. Through the power of karma, we are self-creating beings in a self-creating existence. Even the forces of nature like gravity, which appear beyond our control, are manifestations of an intelligent reality in which we are active participants. That's a lot to take in. We are acting through free will. The gunas will affect it, of course, and we may not make the best choices all the time. but we are acting in this world. We are responsible for our actions. So at the end of the day, from a medieval perspective, they might say you're being judged and damned and all these stuff, but in reality is you stop at the end of life, it's what it said, you review your past life, what went well, what didn't go well. Then it's like, okay, let's take another life and see if we can learn this lesson now. This is essentially what's happening. I'm simplifying something incredibly complex. We are responsible for our actions. We take this life, and now karma hits. We can't see it because we're focusing just on this lifetime, trying to work just on these lessons. If we knew the whole picture, it would be terribly confusing. You know how confused people are just in this lifetime? Imagine if you had, dare I say, tens of thousands of lifetimes. We try to work on these lessons, but we don't know where this stuff came from. If we're in Maya and we don't have an understanding of these hidden forces or our own true nature of God, then we fall into what could aptly be called hell in this terribly painful situations as we learn these lessons. Often we don't learn the lessons and we continue over and over and over again. So you see how these things are all playing together. What seems to be fate, for example, a deja vu or something happens and like, wow, it's fate that I'm just here at this time, at this possible moment, and actually no, it's probably your karma based on previous choices and your intentionality. Now karma is like a fixed, not a fix, I shouldn't say that, an energy of the past. We think it's fixed. But in actual fact, that karma, yes, it comes. We can't change it per se in the moment, but we can change our reaction to the circumstances, make new karma, and shift it for the rest of our lives. You can create a magnetism of loving kindness through everything that you do, and then fate, luck, things will happen to you more and more because your intentions are good. So you begin to shift and alter the karma. Through future lifetimes and beyond, then that karma shifts more and more. Yoga techniques in many ways can take the energy of the karmas in the chakras and essentially dissolve them. That's pretty heavy stuff. Essentially dissolve the karmas inside of you. This is what advanced yoga is trying to do. Through your action, through your devotion, through your different techniques like pranayama and things like this. It's such a big subject. But think about everything in the universe has an equal and opposite reaction. Night follows day, right? Summer, winter, all of these things. This is nature's way of telling us it's balancing itself dualistically. The pendulum swings back and forth. Everything in nature comes and then comes back to us. Now, one last thing I'll mention here, one brief thing I'll mention here is, how is this karmic energy transmitted or affecting us? This is astrology. When the planets move, they are benevolent in their own way, but when the planets move, different rays of light, of karma are coming to us. Hence a planet then can move whereby it's a rough time at work versus a good time at work, or relationships, anything else. You can look up Vedic astrology or Jyotish, and you can not understand it, I can't understand it, it's so complex. You can go and speak to somebody who understands it. You can look at your karma through your birth time and how it's manifesting in this life. This is something very, very elaborate. The cool thing is you can begin to see it and work with it and use different techniques like mantra, wearing astrological gems, things like this, can help you mitigate karma as it comes through. But it's coming, and it's coming in waves at different times. You can be prepared for it through astrology that's done correctly, or you can be completely blind to these hidden forces. And of course, something's going to happen, it's going to hit you. At that point, then you stop. If you can, you come back, you collect yourself, you pray deeply for guidance to help you through the karmic challenge, as opposed to praying for it to go away. Unfortunately, from this perspective, they say, no, we don't make things go away. Instead, you can find the courage, the insight, the wisdom to deal with it. So it's a whole other way of looking at karma. On karma, one thing that's really important is that there is a gap between cause and effect. It doesn't just happen instantly. If you're a master of yoga or spirituality, then a miracle essentially is instant karma, where you can make it happen right now. But we have egos, and we have all these cross currents in the ego, and we change our mind, and we negate things all the time. We say we want abundance, then we say, I'll never be rich, and this is going back and forth. So there is a gap between stuff happening now versus how you act today. It's crucial that you understand that. Because we tend to think, I'm a good person, why does this stuff happen to me? Why is the other person who's not so nice, everything goes easily for? This is part of the karma. Keep acting good and nice now, and that will help future karmas, as opposed to expecting it all on a plate today. It's much more complicated than that. Lastly, on karma, there is collective karma, family karma, country karma. Okay? United States has a karma. It is incurring karma, okay, daily, as it is for UK, Sweden, everything else. Okay? Country karma, planetary karma, and the ultimate universal karma, which is the sound of Om. Creation, sustaining, destroying, pulling everything back in. It's all interconnected. Lastly, I'll touch on reincarnation. Obviously then, karma brings the new life, and where you go, the family you choose, the town you're born in, all of these things, the time you're born in, it's all connected. For the karmic theory to really be understood and to really work, you can't have it without reincarnation, because it takes countless incarnations to fully perfect the soul. So we've got to think in a much bigger perspective. But know that you are not doomed for all eternity. Know that you incarnate to learn the lessons, not to be punished. And yes, you can go through hell and you can make your life hell if you choose to, but you can also make it a heaven on earth if you choose. Thank you all for watching this video. Namaste. Om. Peace. Amen.